Good evening and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's public hearing for Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, relative to the proposed annexation of Wilkinsburg. And this is the second hearing we've had, and we've had a post agenda regarding this same subject. Madam Clerk, will you please read the subject of this hearing?
Tonight's hearing is in reference to the City of Pittsburgh's proposed annexation of Wilkinsburg Borough.
Thank you. And for the record, we are joined today by Councilman Wilson, who is in the building but also on Zoom, and Councilman Lavelle. And Councilman Kraus. Any other members? Madam Clerk? Okay, that's what all we see right now. And as others join, we'll make sure we mention them as well. And I just, again, want to mention for the process that we have 48 registered speakers, and we received over this course of this process hundreds of emails and opinions via phone calls, emails, and other ways from members or from residents on both Pittsburgh and Wilkinsburg voicing their opinions on this subject. So our first order of business will be hearing testimony from the resident speakers. Once your name is called, please state your full name and address for the record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address council. If you did not register in advance, we will open up testimony after we have exhausted our list of registered speakers. Non-registered speakers will receive 1 minute. Please keep in mind that this is an opportunity for the community to speak directly to Pittsburgh City Council about issues at hand and a time for council to listen. Therefore, council members will not be responsible. Begin with Mara Kaleida, please.
Good evening. Maura Kaleida, 1533 Berkshire Avenue, 15226. First, thank you to Councilmember Kale Smith for calling this important public hearing regarding the annexation of Wilkinsburg. Public comment and participation are cornerstones of our democracy, and I appreciate your commitment to transparency. Councilman Coghill said he wouldn't attend tonight and mentioned that he didn't agree with the process of holding this public hearing today. Process is exactly what the issue is that is before us and what it boils down to. We see the utilization of a never before used law from 1903 to try to push through an annexation rather than holding robust community conversations and soliciting financial support from the state. Most people speaking here tonight against annexation would love to welcome Wilkinsburg with open arms through a thoughtful and community-led merger. But we will not support an annexation process that actively harms the school district and would hurt children from both Pittsburgh and Wilkinsburg. Let's be clear, this isn't just about the students in PPS. This move would be a disservice to the children of Wilkinsburg as well. Without a debt relief mechanism for Wilkinsburg School District and assistance from the state, the children of the borough would be thrown into a district who could not financially or logistically support them. If politicians in this city really want to move this investment forward, or this initiative forward, we need to be having a conversation about a merger, not an annexation. I hear the folks here want the facts. Facts were presented to this body by Ira Weiss while not speaking on behalf of the school district, but at the same time as a solicitor for many districts in our area. I was surprised and disheartened to hear our school district and city controller support this annexation effort, declaring it a win-win without an understanding of the detrimental effects of the school district. It is both irresponsible and factually inaccurate to put this sort of narrative out into the public sphere. As attested to by Solicitor Weiss, and backed up through an examination of school code and district finances, this move would financially cripple PPS. On top of all of this, I have heard promises of no reassessments, which is not a promise that can be made. The city, school district, and county can all conduct reassessments. A resident can also bring a lawsuit against the county to force a reassessment, exactly what happened 10 years ago. We cannot make promises to the community that we certainly cannot keep. Many of you are familiar with the work that I've done around public education in this city. As a former school board director, the wife of a teacher, the mom of 2 PPS kids, and a graduate of John Abershire High School, my dedication and commitment to public education has very deep roots. This is not a testimony on a political agenda, but rather a plea to take the children of both Wilkinsburg and the city into account. Please vote no on the proposed annexation.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have Terry Linden. And I just want to also mention that we are also joined by Councilwoman Strasburger, and we have Councilman O'Connor also listening. Thank you. Terry Lynn, Denne. Terry Lynn, it's last time. Okay, our next speaker is Carrie Chisholm. Carrie Chisholm.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
My name is Carrie Chisholm. I reside at 2075 Pioneer Avenue, 15226. And I would like to offer my statement against the merger. As a City of Pittsburgh resident and homeowner and a parent of a child in the Pittsburgh Public School District, I support helping Wilkinsburg, but not through this proposed annexation that is being irresponsibly pushed by my district's council member, Anthony Coghill, and others. Without state assistance, charter law exemptions, and debt relief, this plan is not only unfeasible, it is actively harmful to our students in PPS while providing no sustainable benefit to the students of Wilkinsburg. I am a lifelong supporter of public schools and have committed to bringing my child through the PPS district despite the many financial struggles and administrative difficulties that it has faced even prior to the pandemic. When PPS had significant issues finding buses and drivers, for the 2021-2022 school year, I gave up my child's seat on the school bus because I knew I could help another family in our district that did not have the benefit of a flexible work schedule to provide parental transportation. Adding Wilkinsburg into the geographical footprint of PPS through this proposed annexation would not only exacerbate what is already a logistical nightmare. How can one even consider making PPS responsible for busing students as far away as Murraysville when district families are already being asked to make sacrifices to get their children to a school 2 miles away? Please do not vote for this annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Kaleida. Kaleida. And you're muted, Kenneth. Can you unmute your mic, please?
Yes, I'm unmuting. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Please continue.
I wanted to thank Councilman Teresa Kale Smith for holding this hearing and for the other council members who have the courtesy to show. I want to make it clear from the outset of my testimony that I vigorously oppose the annexation of Wilkinsburg by the city of Pittsburgh. I take this stand because it is not in the best interest of either Pittsburgh or Wilkinsburg residents. This proposed annexation would be a boon to developers and punishing to the poor and middle-class students of residents of both places. I'm proud to be a lifelong Pittsburgher and only wish the best for the residents of Wilkinsburg. When proposals were carried out to partner with Wilkinsburg for fire and trash services, as well as adding many Wilkinsburg students, I did not raise an objection. I trusted that this was worked out in a mutually beneficial manner for both parties. Because it was a merger, the Pennsylvania Department of Education provided legal and technical assistance for the school districts. This is different. One can clearly see the negative impact of this proposed annexation on the taxpayers of both communities. This annexation is a gift to developers, which will result in an East Liberty type gentrification process that will punish the 67% of Wilkinsburg residents who are renters. Their landlords will benefit from significant property tax relief, which we all know will not be passed on to the renters. There will also be more pressure on affordable rental properties, which will result in higher rents. The average Wilkinsburg resident also will face a threefold increase in their wage tax. Wilkinsburg taxpayers will experience what many of us outside of the so-called privileged areas marked for development in the city experience. Declining business districts with many vacant storefronts and a lack of public services. We have not had our street in Beachview cleaned by the city for 4 years, and we still don't have a public works building in our council district. Many of you have seen the recent news coverage of our lack of services for snow removal. Money goes to the development of select areas while the majority of the city suffers. This fate awaits Wilkinsburg. Our school district and residents cannot be asked to take on the Wilkinsburg School District's $27 million debt, an old unused high school building, and additional fiscal burdens. So what is the answer? There is no reason that a merger shouldn't be considered in the future. This would need to be accomplished with state cooperation, technical assistance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, protection for renters against the worst aspects of gentrification for long-term residents, policy changes, and financial compensation that makes it possible for the Pittsburgh Public Schools to enable a merger without punishing Pittsburgh taxpayers. I'm puzzled that the PPS hasn't been given a bigger voice in this process. Please vote no to annexation. Thank you.
Thank you. And next speaker is Jamie Petrowski. Director Petrowski. Jamie? Everyone, we'll come back. Jamie's a school board director for Pittsburgh Public Schools. Molly Gunter? Molly Gunter.
Yes.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you all. My name is Molly Blake Gunther. My address is 1341 Beachview Avenue. I'm here to ask council people to vote no. The process is suspicious, to say the least. Why should the residents of Wilkinsburg not have a say in this? Why should the residents of Pittsburgh not play a part in this decision? It seems very backdoor, to be honest. And secondarily, I am a parent of a student who attends the Pittsburgh Public Schools, and this fall, we didn't have a bus for, I think, the first 5 weeks of school. I can't imagine how we are going to take on Wilkinsburg's burden, their debt, their buildings, their contracts, when we are struggling with taking care of what we have here. And that goes beyond, I mean, snowfall, sanitation, all of these things. Let the people decide. Let's talk about this openly in a clear and transparent way. And that's what I ask of you. And this is not the way to do it. So I request that you please vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next 5 speakers are Tracy Evans, Elizabeth Slaby, Ikahana Helmakina, Jason Pacharka, and Genevieve Pacharka. And if I pronounce anyone's name wrong, I apologize. Please correct me when you get on. Our next speaker is Tracy Evans.
Good evening, President Kale Smith and Pittsburgh City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Tracy Evans, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation. I live at 614 Whitney Avenue and have been a resident of Wilkinsburg since 1987. I support the proposed annexation and the 1,200 residents who have signed a petition to allow this referendum to be placed on a ballot. We respectfully ask that we be given an opportunity to present an overview of the financial analysis that has been prepared for both the city and the school district to answer the many questions that have been raised. There's much information that has not been able to be shared. And yes, we agree in terms of conversations and people working together. So we do request that opportunity. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Elizabeth Slaby.
Yes. Hello. My name's Elizabeth or Beth Slaby. I'm a former Wilkinsburg school board member. I've also been a homeowner in Wilkinsburg since 2013. As somebody who's witnessed the inner workings of the Wilkinsburg community, I think the merger could be a symbiotic relationship. There are many historic homes in Wilkinsburg that I think are in need of just a little bit of TLC if the boroughs were to merge. I believe that could incentivize people and businesses to invest in these properties, which can contribute to the revitalization of an area that has a lot of potential in my mind. I also wanted to clarify something. It is my understanding that Wilkinsburg's debt is not 27 million, it's 21 million, 3 million of which is earning interest while they await architect plans for the Kelly primary building. And approximately 4.2 million will be reimbursed by the Department of Education over 20 years. So that brings the debt to around 17 million, which is a fraction of the average for Allegheny County districts. I also think a merger could qualify the newly merged community for more federal and state funding, which would benefit Wilkinsburg and Pittsburgh residents alike. It's also my understanding that in the 6 years that Wilkinsburg residents have operated as a collective community, and that the students have been attending Pittsburgh Public Schools, that they've improved the grade point averages by a full point. So it would be wonderful for that partnership to continue. So at the end of the day, I think it's just time that Wilkinsburg residents be afforded the ability to vote on the issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Ikahana Helmakina. Ikahana Helmakina, is she on? She's not on. We'll go on to our next speaker, Jason Pacharka. Jason Pacharka. And you're on. Jason, please unmute your mic. Does he have an old, Jason, I apologize. You have an older version of Zoom and it's not working for us. So if you would submit your comments via email, or you can call the clerk's office and she'll be happy to share that with all members of council. And the number for the clerk's office, Madam Clerk?
412-255-2138.
Thank you. I apologize. What'd you say, Bob? Yeah. Or you could update your version and then get back on to, and then let us know that you're back on. And that goes the same. I don't know if Genevieve Pacharka has the same. Genevieve Pacharka? She's not on. Okay, so we'll come back to the Pacharka family. Paul OHanlon.
Yes, good evening. My name is Paul OHanlon. I live at 959 South Braddock Avenue in Wilkinsburg, and I urge Pittsburgh City Council to reject this proposal to annex Wilkinsburg. It isn't in the best interest of Pittsburgh or Wilkinsburg, but what I want to emphasize is how irresponsible this particular effort is. Herb Simon was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and he won a Nobel Prize. He was a really smart guy. And Herb Simon observed that the scarcest resource of all is human attention. And that's relevant to this question about annexing Wilkinsburg. At the moment, Wilkinsburg is the top concern for Wilkinsburg Council and employees and residents. If Wilkinsburg is annexed, who here on council or city government will have Wilkinsburg as your highest concern and priority? If Wilkinsburg is annexed, what is Pittsburgh's plan to address our problems? I ask knowing that Pittsburgh has no plan, and none of you has a reason to take on Wilkinsburg problems instead of the problems in your neighborhoods. You're being asked to approve a plan that is no plan. If just being within the city boundaries is all that Wilkinsburg needs to thrive, then why aren't all city neighborhoods thriving? If this is the solution to the decline of the Wilkinsburg Business District, then why are business districts in Homewood, Sheridan, Brookline, Northside, Hazelwood, and the Southside Hilltop communities all suffering? If the plan is simply to be annexed by Pittsburgh, then let's be honest and admit that there is no plan. It's like coming up with a plan to fix a flat tire by towing the car to a nicer neighborhood. I think that we can all think of scenarios where some merger of Pittsburgh and Wilkinsburg would make sense, but we only have one scenario presented. And that scenario boxes Pittsburgh City Council into a short decision frame and proposes to hold a referendum in Wilkinsburg in a primary election where voting records show that an older, wealthier, and whiter electorate will be making this decision. I urge Pittsburgh City Council to be the responsible party. I think we all need to be open to thinking about how and why the city might merge with Wilkinsburg, but see that the present proposal doesn't get us there. Until there's a vote, no one can say for certain what Wilkinsburg residents think, but it's clear that Wilkinsburg elected officials do not support this effort.
Thank you. And our next 5 speakers are Edward Donovan, Kathleen Rollins, Myra Pittaway, Stephanie Cook, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Renee Donnelly. And so we'll begin with Edward Donovan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Madam President and members of council for this opportunity. My name's Ed Donovan. I'm president of the Wilkinsburg School Board, and I live at 2363 Sebring Place in Wilkinsburg. I've been here for 29 years. I signed up to comment, not to be in favor of annexation, but definitely in favor of the referendum. And there are a couple rumors, there are a lot of rumors out there right now in the media and on Facebook, and I'd like to dispel a couple of those now with the time that I have. I've heard the battle cry, save PPS, because Wilkinsburg would mean takeover by the state. That's just false. Takeover or receivership is the most drastic move that the state makes when a school district is in some trouble. I think there's one district out of 500 in the state that's actually in receivership right now, which is what it's called. There are many steps going on the financial watch list, going into financial recovery that PDE in the state offer to school districts before the very drastic step of receivership. I think the thought of running Pittsburgh School District from Harrisburg would give any legislator nightmares. And so that's an idle threat, I think, that some people are putting forward. Second is that Pittsburgh Public Schools would get stuck with the costs of busing our charter students to Monroeville, and more recently I heard Murraysville. It's false. This is the 3rd school year that we have taken the stand that the law provides for us to not bus charter school students, and so we don't, unless their home or school is far from a public transportation stop, or they're special ed students who deserve transportation. We believe that that is what the law says, and this is now in front of the highest court in the state. I can't comment any further on it, but when we win that, it will be a boon to school districts all over the state. And the third is that annexation means that PPS would get no assistance or support whatsoever from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That's false. PDE helped us a lot when we worked with Pittsburgh on our high school kids. It's a real success story. And 2 years ago, I was on a conference call with the Deputy Secretary of PDE, with Dr. Hamlet, his chief of staff, and a board member from Pittsburgh, and I. And we were about renewing the partnership. The subject of completely consolidating our districts came up. And PDE's comment was, if you get to that point, let us know, because we will help you if you want it. Now, PDE is not going to come out for or against annexation, but I've been at the table and on the phone with them many times, and I have no doubt that they would support the consolidation of these districts. One thing no one talks about is revenue that would go to PPS. Annexation doesn't mean that PPS would get stuck with 550 students and no money to pay for their education. We get $17 million a year from the state, $7 million from the feds, and all of that would accrue to PPS. As far as local tax revenue is concerned, the financial consulting firm PFM are working now.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Kathleen Rollins. Kathleen Rollins. You're muted. Could you please unmute your mic? Okay. Ms. Rollins, please continue. Is it an old version? No, she's not. No. Could you please, Miss Kathleen Rollins, could you please continue? start talking? He's off? Okay, we will try to come back. And Mara Pitaway. Mara Pitaway. Mara Pitaway, you're on. Is she unmuted? She has an old version too. Okay, if you can update your version that you have and then call back in and we'll call on you. If not, you can call the city clerk's office to share your statement with all members of council, and they can email you or call you, Madam Clerk, at, sorry, could you give your information again?
412-255-2138.
In the email?
City Clerk's Office at pittsburghpa.gov.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot there. And we'll try to come back. Stephanie Cook. Stephanie Cook.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Cook. I live at 2031 Kendon Drive East in Wilkinsburg. And I do oppose this annexation because I do believe, and I know, and you know also, that Pittsburgh has its own issues. Until you take care of your issues, you should not even think about taking on someone else's issues. This proposal would not do anything to educate the young African-American males. They need to get off the street. They need some kind of educational programs. Like when they got rid of Connolly Trade School, that was one of the worst things that ever happened to the city of Pittsburgh. We need something like that for these young African-American males, get them young and get them trained, educated, and working. Pittsburgh doesn't have a plan to get rid of drugs, so they would come in Wilkinsburg, and it's not going to help if they don't have a plan to get rid of the drugs out of the city. So don't come trying to take over Wilkinsburg and still have a drug problem. And Pittsburgh does not take care of their roads, which means they will not take care of our roads here. And you see with the snow, the side streets are just totally ignored as if people don't live on them. People live on side streets. And it's just horrible how Pittsburgh manages their roads. And Pittsburgh is known for their racism. They need to work on these four things: educating the young African-American males, get the drugs, deal with these horrible roads, and combat racism before they think about taking care of Wilkinsburg. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Renee Dalton. Renee, you're muted.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. My name is Renee Dalton, and I live at 2315 Orlando Place in Pittsburgh. I am a Wilkinsburg resident. I am asking you to vote against annexation. As an opening, I would like to ask for you to compare and contrast Pittsburgh's response to the snow late last week versus Wilkinsburg. Our streets were beautifully cleaned and maintained by our Department of Public Works, who are borough residents and who care about this community. Pittsburgh was simply chaos, and service was ineffectual, and people were stranded and inconvenienced. Whenever numbers get thrown at you by proponents of annexation, I want to say clearly to you that Wilkinsburg is not a failing community. We do take care of our own. We have a better bond rating than the city of Pittsburgh, with a balanced budget and a prudent surplus every year. Financially, we are doing great, and I can share reports from our finance department if you are interested. We are not asking for your help. The main problem that Wilkinsburg has, as everybody remarks, is the blight. And I want to say something as plainly as I can, and that is that the blight in Wilkinsburg is caused by title problems. Blight is not, and this is typical for most communities, the blight is not caused by lack of investment. The blight is not caused by no one wanting to move to Wilkinsburg. The blight is not caused because our taxes are too high. The blight is caused because of tangled titles, typically a dead owner. And I want to state specifically to Councilman Coghill that we do have a plan to deal with our own blight. The very worst thing that could happen to Wilkinsburg, the very worst thing, would be for it to merge with the city of Pittsburgh. And I say this because Pittsburgh owns over 11,500 blighted properties. Pittsburgh is the owner of more blighted properties than any other entity in the state. We do not want to be a part of this mess. We want to fix our problems ourselves. I think it's clear to everybody here that it is the forces of gentrification that are pushing this annexation. There is a vision for East Liberty and Bakery Square to just creep on down Penn Avenue and to push everybody who currently lives in Wilkinsburg out. These forces are the developers who will profit from the construction and the federal monies that will underwrite their activities. These unelected people should have no say in what happens to an autonomous, independent community that likes being an independent community. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald tipped his hand by headlining the event last Wednesday on the city-county building steps. I know that it cannot be easy or comfortable for anybody on city council to defy the wishes of Rich Fitzgerald. But I am asking you to, and I am reminding you that Rich Fitzgerald is pretty much a lame duck already. In less than 2 years, he will have as much power as Dan Honorado does now. So please, do the right thing. Do not strip Wilkinsburg of its political autonomy for the sake of some developers and all the people that they spread their money to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next 5 speakers are Bud Wise, Pamela Macklin, Denise Edwards, President of Wilkinsburg Borough Council, Vanessa Buffery, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Jody Harper Guy. And we'll begin with Bud Wise, please. Bud Wise.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairwoman Kale Smith and all the counselors for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bud Wise and I live at 1039 Somerset Drive in Squirrel Hill. I am a native of Wilkinsburg and I'm still connected with the borough through church, support of local businesses, and as a volunteer board member of the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation. I come here this evening to express my strong support for the annexation of Wilkinsburg. I believe this is a clear win-win opportunity. For Pittsburgh, this is a rare opportunity to increase our population by nearly 5%, and we all know that the entire city benefits from being larger. In addition, since Wilkinsburg is a majority-minority community, the city will become more diverse, something we all value. Plus, it is an opportunity to demonstrate forward thinking for the region. Municipal consolidation leads to efficiencies which benefit all parties. Witness the successful partnerships that the city already has with Wilkinsburg to provide fire protection and garbage collection, and beyond that, the very successful public school partnership. For Wilkinsburg, this is an opportunity to stop the trend of decline, as has been well documented. Wilkinsburg needs systemic change to compete for investment dollars. The current inequitable tax structure serves as a barrier to investment that we cannot overcome. Certainly, the WCDC and the people of Wilkinsburg will continue to spearhead development projects regardless of the outcome. But successful projects aren't the same as structural change. Simply put, Wilkinsburg must become more attractive for people to buy homes and start businesses. Finally, some say they favor municipal consolidation, but that this effort is rushed or that we are using the wrong process. but we are using the only process that is legally available, and this idea has been discussed for years. Over the past 2 years, independent professional studies, which I hope you review, and hundreds of grassroots discussions have brought us to this point. I ask, if not now, when? I urge you to make history and vote to allow a referendum in Wilkinsburg, the purest form of democracy. This is a very important vote for Pittsburgh.
Thank you. And I just want to mention that we are also joined by City Council Solicitor. Pardon me? And Councilwoman Deb Gross joined us as well. And Pamela Macklin is the next speaker. Pamela Macklin. Pamela Macklin. Okay, we do not see Pamela Macklin registered on the Zoom. So we'll go to our next speaker, who happens to be the president of Wilkinsburg Borough Council, Denise Edwards. President Edwards, you're muted. Could you please unmute your mic?
Good evening, and thank you, President Kale Smith, and thank you again to Pittsburgh City Council. I wanted to bring to City Council's attention the 2 resolutions that Wilkinsburg Borough Council has passed in opposition to this effort. I have already sent them electronically to Ms. Robinson, I believe it is, who is the clerk, for your review. Obviously, having passed 2 resolutions, we are opposed and urge the City Council to reject the effort to annex Wilkinsburg to the City of Pittsburgh. We have worked many years with the City of Pittsburgh and have 2 contracts and have renegotiated those contracts in their time limit, in the contract time limit, to everybody's advantage. An annexation is quite different. That is not a mutual discussion where parties sit at the table and negotiate a path forward to their mutual benefit. That is not what an annexation is. We have great respect, and as I've said, we work very well with the City of Pittsburgh. But Wilkinsburg is perfectly capable of governing ourselves, as demonstrated through the last several decades, where we have grown, have balanced our budgets, have improved our bond rating. There are many other issues we need to deal with. A Wilkinsburg Borough Council believes very strongly that we are able to do that. We believe also, and also very strongly, that this whole discussion, which blindsided council last year, blindsided council, has created division and has created a great deal of confusion, as other speakers have alluded to. I want to thank you for your time. I would like to invite you to Wilkinsburg to visit many of our new businesses, and we look forward to continuing to working together very well with the City of Pittsburgh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Vanessa Buffery. Vanessa Buffery.
Hello, this is Vanessa Buffery. My address is at 821 Mifflin Avenue in Wilkinsburg, and I am on the Wilkinsburg School Board. I want to thank you, counselors, for giving us the chance to speak tonight, as you did also in December. Unfortunately, in Wilkinsburg, any public commentary on the issue has been full stop censored by our Borough Council, beginning in January 2021, when they issued an edict to censor Mayor Marita Garrett, then Mayor Marita Garrett, after she came out in public with some of the municipal challenges that the borough was facing, not replacing employees, lapsing services, so on and so forth. The very next month, they occupied their council meeting with censoring, and I'm sure it sounds like Ms. Edwards has sent to you, they censored then any discussion of annexation within the borough of Wilkinsburg. The WCDC at that stage has stepped up to host a democratic discussions. And of course, everybody would wish that our representatives would take it upon themselves to represent us as such. But in such a vacuum, it was the WCDC that stepped forth. Faced with the reality this after November's elections that the council was to receive 5 incoming board members, they rushed a third censorship edict. And at that point, the school board stepped in to signal our commitment to fill the absolute leadership vacuum in the borough. We voted in our December meeting 7 yes to 1 abstain to investigate this annexation and to begin conversations with Pittsburgh Public Schools. We sent this resolution to council, and we are a bit surprised to see that things are starting to be rushed, even though we have indicated that we are open-minded and we're going to investigate the process. That does not mean that we are in support of the annexation, as it were. In fact, we're quite proud of our schools. We're proud of our teachers and all of the administration, and especially our fantastic students. But heck, if our residents in the tune of 1,200 people have signed a resolution that says that we want to investigate it, it's our role as public servants to do that. So we ask that you allow Wilkinsburg residents the chance to vote for ourselves, because nobody else is really representing us in our best interest at the Borough Council. And as a school board representative, we ask for more time to continue to pursue and to investigate really what it would mean for school districts to work together. Nobody on this call has that information. We don't have that information yet. We are investigating it currently, both the financial analysis as well as actual discussions with PPS, and we urge you to wait. That is forthcoming. Finally, just as a resident, not as a school board resident, I would, as a school board member, I would just like to point out that it's not just tax issues or title issues that hold.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Jody Harper Guy. Jody Harper Guy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you folks this evening. My question is, frankly, what is the rush? The WCDC, Pittsburgh City Council, and proponents of the annexation don't have an actionable plan for Pittsburgh to integrate with Wilkinsburg. And so to have a vote on anything is just a huge question mark in my mind. I hear no plan, only the repeating refrain that I hear time and time again, that it's the property taxes. So to that, I say the WCDC has been in business 12 years. And has failed in doing what they were established to do, which was to rebuild the business district. But yet the CDC has publicly stated on their website that they have raised $100 million to invest in Wilkinsburg. So I ask, where did the $100 million go? Not to the business district and not to any number of the vacant properties in the borough. $7 million did go to a still vacant train station and to $2 million into the Lohr building that the WC owns and occupies, while Penn Avenue and the business district continue to decline. These are facts that you can see and touch. $100 million. What failed at the WCDC? I need to know this before there is a vote. There is a solution to Wilkinsburg challenges. Get a new CDC, one that cares about all of Wilkinsburg, not just the rich and the powerful, and to structure an ownership program for half the vacant properties that can be occupied, with structured incentives to purchase, renovate, occupy, and be affordable homes. Move the needle from 65% renters to 65% ownership without gentrification. Stop the rush to vote without a plan and without making sure that all people in Wilkinsburg are registered to vote. Because right now, voter registration is not across the board. Voter registration is higher in higher income neighborhoods and not on the main street and the neighborhoods surrounding it. So where did the $100 million go and what's the rush? Thank you.
All right, and the next speaker is Angel Gober. Is Angel on? Angel?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, we can hear you. Good evening.
Hey, hi, everybody. It's been a long time since I got to testify at City Council. So good evening. My name is Angel Gober. I am the Regional Director for 1PA and the Education Justice Fund. I'm here tonight to say, please don't vote on the proposed annexation of Wilkinsburg. It has been brought to my attention that some of you may not understand the role of community organizers. See, our job is to pay attention to what's going on in our communities, educate our members when there are red flags, and support them in their ability to speak to their elected officials. And tonight, we are raising that red flag. While we welcome the rest of Wilkinsburg students into PPS, we must utilize a thoughtful and careful process. As we done when the older children moved into our district, annexation could cause irreparable harm to the children of Wilkinsburg, increasing the depth and burden on PPS without any support from the state and community. Our school district is already suffering. There is conversations about closing schools. So any more debt would be detrimental to the students of PPS in Wilkinsburg. This is a rush process in specifically named purpose of development. When I hear of development needs in the East End, I think of my time at Action United when gentrification was at its highest in East Liberty. How many Black folks will be pushed out of their homes in the name of development this time? Over 65% of Wilkinsburg residents are renters. I don't know about you, but in 20 years of community organizing, I've never once heard of a landlord who saved on taxes and decreased tenants' rent. On top of that, of the increase of the earned income tax to 3 times the current amount will directly affect and disenfranchise renters. This annexation would put more money in the pockets of the haves and would hurt those of the have-nots. Decisions around education, housing, and development should be made hand in hand with the community. Let's halt this process right now by voting no on annexation, and let's move forward together as partners to see how we can do the same thing in a more thoughtful and transparent way. You all have a good evening and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And our next few speakers are Bailey Brown, Ralph Noor, Cold Williams, Paige Trice, and Natisha Washington. And we'll begin with Bailey Brown and then Ralph Noor. Bailey Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you to my friends on City Council for holding this hearing. My name is Bailey Brown. I reside at 721 Whitney Avenue in Wilkinsburg, 15221. And I'm here to speak critically in opposition to this initiative. I'd like to echo many points many others have made in opposition tonight, especially having to do with the process and lack of transparency around this initiative, especially on the part of the Wilkinsburg CDC. I do understand some compelling arguments for the annexation. However, I do believe it would solve some problems for some people and create other problems for many others, namely working class renters like myself that comprise, as you've heard, over half of the population in Wilkinsburg. I believe that as it stands, Wilkinsburg is actually a bastion of affordable rental housing in Allegheny County, and renters cannot afford any increases that I feel would be inevitable with the annexation. As I said, my primary issue is with the process. I don't believe it's been undertaken in a way that is fair or equitable to Wilkinsburg residents across the board and across the borough. I feel that the WCDC kept the process under wraps for too long and is currently rushing us all the while. And as I understand from a conversation with Ms. Evans the other day, the thrust of the rush is to make redistricting easier on the part of the city. And this to me is a perfect example of, obviously many people tonight don't seem to know that that's a reasoning behind the rush. And that to me does not seem to be a good reason, because it speaks to the many unanswered questions. Wilkinsburgers are being expected to vote on this initiative without even knowing which district of the city of Pittsburgh we would become a part of, just as one simple example. Too many unknowns, not enough transparency. I believe that also, as stated, Wilkinsburg Borough Council is not providing enough opportunity for authentic community engagement. And I would urge City Council to stop the process at this time so that it could be approached in a more equitable manner. And lastly, I would like to say, I really am not interested in lining the pockets of those who are already rich or already property owners. And I believe.
Thank you. And our next speaker is in person, Mr. Noor, Ralph Noor. Good evening, Mr. Noor. Thank you for waiting patiently here.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ralph Noor. I'm a 60-year resident of the city of Pittsburgh. I live at 608 Woodburn Avenue in Brookline. I'm here to say that I'm opposed to the annexation because of the serious tax differences between Wilkinsburg and the city of Pittsburgh. I don't think people in Wilkinsburg understand the ramifications of what's happening here. They're just looking at the property tax, which is about 75% higher than the city of Pittsburgh. I understand. But I had this conversation with a friend of mine who I've known for approximately 40 years, who lives and owns a house in Wilkinsburg. And I recently explained to him what was going on down here and what was being described by the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation as a win for Wilkinsburg. But then I asked my friend Marvin, I said, Marvin, how much do you pay in real estate taxes? And he said, I think he said approximately $3,300, which sounds high to me. And like I said, I think it's approximately 75% above the city of Pittsburgh. However, I said to him, and he works, I said, well, Marvin, do you realize that we have a 3% wage tax in the city of Pittsburgh? So when you look at your pay stub, you will notice that you have 3 times the amount that you currently pay. So look at your wage stub. And I said, who else in your home earns a wage? And he said, my wife and my adult daughter, 34 years old. I said, okay. So I didn't ask him how much he made and his wife and his daughter combined, but I just did a conservative estimate, and I would say $100,000 as an example. So if that were to happen and he had $100,000 income in his home, he would pay $3,000 a year versus the $1,000 that he currently pays with the 3 salaries combined. Now, let's look at the, also something that's not being mentioned is the property transfer tax, which I believe is about 5 times higher than Wilkinsburg. So if you sell a $100,000 home, you pay 5%. That's $5,000, which is usually split between the buyer and seller of the home. It's currently, it would be $1,000. So it's quite a difference there just with those 2 in particular. And then for the city of Pittsburgh, I would like to say that I doubt they have much parking revenue that they can generate out in Wilkinsburg. The city of Pittsburgh, as we know, generates a lot of income from the parking tax. So there's huge disparities. I don't think this was totally thought through. And then you talk about the issues with the school board mergers and the redistricting of the political areas. It's quite a complicated issue. I don't think everybody's taken everything in consideration, whether you live in Pittsburgh or you live in Wilkinsburg. One last thing. I understand from being at council meetings that we have approximately 7,000 abandoned buildings in the city of Pittsburgh and tens of thousands, somewhere between 20 and 30,000 vacant properties in the city of Pittsburgh. So I don't know what they have in Wilkinsburg, but they ought to figure that one out first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noor. And the next speaker is Cole D. Williams. Cole D. Williams? Not on? Okay, let me just call one more time. Cole D. Williams? The next speaker is Paige Trice. Paige? Paige Trice? She's Councilwoman. Councilwoman Trice? She's not on. Okay, we'll maybe try to come back. She's Councilwoman. Try to come back there. And Natisha C. Washington? Natisha C. Washington?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Natisha Washington. I reside at 601 West Street in Wilkinsburg. I am a resident that is from and currently lives in Wilkinsburg. I'm an environmental justice organizer for One PA and a community advocate who has been a part of many community plans, and I personally experienced my community of Wilkinsburg as a Black woman renter. I'm not here to speak nor for nor against the merger. I'm here to make the statement that the decision of this annexation should not be made without real engagement and planning with our community. Since hearing about the merger, I have taken time to go over the focus group presentation and a redevelopment study on the Wilkinsburg merger website. And I found that in the focus group study, many statements were made about the vast presence of vacant properties, lack of communication within the community, especially among our council, high property tax values, and the racial divide that is very present here. These issues, especially the presence of vacant homes, I know personally are still currently an issue in low-income communities within the city. So I am not fully convinced that the city has the capacity to address the many issues that our community faces. In the redevelopment plan, there is a lot of focus on property tax, even though, as we heard throughout today, many of our people, above 60% of our residents, are renters. All of our residents would, as mentioned before, have a 2% inflation on their earned income tax, which can be a major issue for our low-income families. With this plan, there is the possibility of gentrification and raised rent rates from the new development that has been proposed in these plans. And this concern has yet to be properly addressed to the many concerned and vulnerable residents within our community. Neither document has showed how the annexation would and could positively affect the majority of our population, which is Black renters. So I ask the council to vote no on this annexation and delay this ballot vote until our community is thoroughly engaged and educated on this process, and an equitable decision can be made with the community. The community voice was not properly heard nor engaged during this process, and I believe such a majorly impactful decision should not be made without a real engagement process that includes all residents. As a resident of Wilkinsburg, I personally do not approve of a plan that is not in favor of our vulnerable residents like me, and believe community voices should be the priority of this decision, not the afterthought. I thank everybody for coming out and making these testimonies, because it really
Thank you.
shows how much people are either opposed or uncertain about this. Sorry.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Alexandra Denmarsh. I'm going to name the next few speakers: Alexandra Denmarsh, Linda Atkins, Renee Haynes Johnson, Monica Garcia, and Derek L. McKinley. And we'll begin with Alexandra Denmarsh, please.
Hello, good evening.
Hey, good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, President Kale Smith and City Council members. I am Alexander Denmarsh. I live at 1003 Mifflin Avenue in Wilkinsburg, 15221. My wife and I are 15-year residents of Wilkinsburg. We moved here from an affluent and homogeneous neighborhood in the South Hills to better align our money with our values. We wanted to invest our tax dollars in an underserved and diverse community where our tax dollars might make more of a difference by owning a home in Wilkinsburg. We have seen some changes for the better in the neighborhood in the time that we've been here, thanks to the tireless effort of some groups, but the majority of our very significant tax dollars we spend $8,000 annually combined real estate and school taxes on a $200,000 house. These tax dollars go towards maintaining costly government and municipal services that could be combined with the city of Pittsburgh, as has already been done very successfully to some degrees on some programs and services. And we commend the city and Wilkinsburg on those partnerships. But Wilkinsburg hasn't been doing a good job of fixing our own problems as we continue to see decline. So we ask the City of Pittsburgh council people, we're asking for your support of Wilkinsburg in helping us to continue to reduce wasteful spending and finite resources on the duplication of municipal services and government bureaucracy by annexing Wilkinsburg into the City of Pittsburgh. We believe that by becoming part of the City of Pittsburgh now, this will help our tax dollars go even further. This annexation will give Wilkinsburg residents the leg up that we need by contributing our tax dollars. Even if my tax dollars don't change a nickel, I'm happy to contribute my tax dollars to the City of Pittsburgh so that we can stop spinning our wheels in Wilkinsburg and better access programming and resources that would become available to us through those shared tax dollars with the City of Pittsburgh that the borough of Wilkinsburg currently desperately needs. By becoming a part of the amazing City of Pittsburgh, and even better after Wilkinsburg comes on board, my wife and I are in full support of this merger acquisition, and we ask for your support. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Councilwoman Linda Atkins.
Hello.
Hi, good evening, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much. My name is Linda Atkins. I'm on Wilkinsburg Council in Ward 1. I live on 2021 Kendon Drive, 15221, longtime resident here. And I'm speaking out against the annexation. And somebody already asked why. How is this going to benefit Wilkinsburg? So that's also my question. The way this whole thing was handled by the CDC in Wilkinsburg is shameful. Shame on them. And they haven't, you're right, they haven't been helping Wilkinsburg. They've gotten much funding from funders, and they have done nothing to help our Penn Avenue Business District. So shame on them. This misinformation that was given to residents of Wilkinsburg has caused confusion, and people are not clear on what they're voting on. And I was recently asked by a resident who signed the petition. He didn't understand what was going on. And he asked me after the fact, after we have the merger and if it doesn't work, can we take it back? Clearly, this is showing confusion. It's not a merger, it's annexation. Clearly, this is confusion, and a lot of it had to do with the CDC came out of the block saying it was a merger. That was a lie. The word is also out that Wilkinsburg Borough is needed only to increase the numbers in Pittsburgh's population. Pittsburgh is losing population, as you know, a lot of areas in Pennsylvania. And it's not the right thing to do just to grab numbers from another community. And also, it's not an opportunity to diversify, which somebody said earlier. And I find it, as a person of color, a little bit insulting to say you're going to grab people from another community just to diversify Pittsburgh. So I hope that's not true, because that's not good. Gentrification is not good. Gentrification is never good, and it's not good for Wilkinsburg. Millions of dollars were spent on the train station project by the Community Development Corporation in Wilkinsburg, led by Tracy Evans, while development on our Penn Avenue Business District was ignored. The CDC in Wilkinsburg has itself caused fear and tension between income levels, class, and between races by spreading misinformation. So all of this needs to be better. This all needs to be better. We all need to have a clear understanding. And what's coming out tonight as well is that there is confusion as far as our school systems. And some of the information I'm hearing does not go along with what the Pittsburgh solicitor said at a previous meeting. So there's definitely just lots of confusion. So this is not the time to do this. And I did want to say that I spoke with a business owner on Penn Avenue in Wilkinsburg, and he's a new business owner. And he said that they had no choice but to move their business from East Liberty.
I apologize, Councilwoman, the time was up. Thank you. And you can submit comments if you want to our clerk's office, and she'll make sure that we receive all the comments if the mic cuts you off after 3 minutes for any speaker. Our next speaker is Renee Haynes Johnson. Renee Haynes Johnson. Renee, you're muted. Could you please unmute your mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, council members, and honored guests, thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight on the proposed annexation of Wilkinsburg. My name is Renee Haynes Johnson, and I've lived in Wilkinsburg since 1985. My current address is 2261 Laketon Road. I began and retired from my 30-year career, bought a home and raised my family during this time. I've seen the borough go through rough times and enter times of stability and improvement. So many speakers before me have already stolen my thunder, so I'll just go on and say that in September of last year, I became aware of the annexation proposal and who initiated it. The Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation, as you've heard of already tonight, which to me is a misnomer. By their actions, they have proven themselves to be a self-serving entity whose motivation is to promote their agenda, fatten their coffers, and destroy rather than develop the community whose name they bear. They approached you as representing the desire of Wilkinsburg residents. Wilkinsburg consists of more than the Regent Square area and certain parts of Black Ridge. This nonprofit has also used skewed propaganda to bamboozle some into believing that annexation is a problem solver. The bamboozled includes you, Council, and the city of Pittsburgh. I ask you, members of Pittsburgh Council, to say no, not right now, to the proposed annexation and put the brakes on this speeding train. Annexation couldn't revisit your doorstep again for at least 2 years. That's enough time to attend to more pressing issues for the city and do a thorough investigation and study of the pros and cons of annexation for yourselves. I thank you, and go Steelers!
There's something we can all agree on tonight. Thank you. And our next speaker is Monica Garcia.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Monica Garcia, and I live at 1612 Graham Boulevard in Wilkinsburg. I am the Vice President of the Wilkinsburg School Board. I am a Wilkinsburg homeowner, but most importantly, I am a parent of Wilkinsburg students. And I'm here to show my support in favor, my personal support in favor of the referendum for annexation of Wilkinsburg to Pittsburgh. I believe Wilkinsburg residents should be given the opportunity to vote this spring. People ask, what's the rush? Well, we've waited far too long for change in Wilkinsburg. Why should we have to wait another 5 years or indefinitely? There is no alternative plan in place. I have yet to hear a plan for change by Wilkinsburg leadership. Years ago, I was inspired by the WCDC and Marita Garrett and the work that they were doing in Wilkinsburg. The message was that there's good all over. So inspired that I decided to buy a home in Wilkinsburg and then eventually run for office in Wilkinsburg. While campaigning for school board, I ran into many residents that expressed their concern over the unsustainably high tax rate here, and primarily senior citizens. They would actually complain about the fact that they had no longer had students or children or grandchildren that were even in the schools, that we no longer had a middle school or high school in the borough, but yet they had to pay these high tax rates that they couldn't afford, that because they have very limited incomes, of course. And so And that was a frustration that I ran into very often. Now, I believe in public school system. And then our school district is in good standing financially. I believe we are an asset to Pittsburgh Public. I don't believe we're a liability. I believe we have much to offer. And we've been able to, as everyone knows, to decrease property taxes over the last few years. However, we are nowhere near being able to get it as low as the Pittsburgh tax rate, even with the recent increase. And, I could think of a lot of things I would be able to do with additional hundreds of dollars every month that I could save. And I've heard some in favor of this call us greedy, or that say that those are in favor are greedy. But you know what? I don't see it as being greedy when I would use that money to buy healthier food options, more groceries for my family as a single mother, fuel to get to work, things like that, basic needs. I would like to see Wilkinsburg be good all over. But, I just feel like we need to give opportunity for the residents to show whether they are in support of this or not by being able to vote on it. And I'm tired of waiting for change that it is too slow to happen. We need to make the change. If we can make it happen, let's make it happen.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Derek McKinley. Derek McKinley, you're muted. Could you please unmute your mic?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Derek L. McKinley. I've been a longtime resident of Wilkinsburg. I am the Democratic committeeman for the 3rd Ward, 3rd District of Wilkinsburg. I am also an employee of the Department of Public Works for Wilkinsburg. I am also the union rep for Wilkinsburg employees. I'm the lead negotiator, and I'm speaking on behalf of my constituency here in my district and my ward. The people that I've spoken to are opposed to the merger. The employees of the Wilkinsburg Borough are opposed to the merger. I think we take pride in what we do in our own community. The people here are a strong breed of people who understand what the future holds for Wilkinsburg. And we are willing to do what it takes to be able to make the change here. The WCDC does not speak for council. I don't think the city would like anybody from a nonprofit to tell them what to do in their own community. I believe we have a strong leadership here. I believe we are on the right path to be able to get things done. And I believe the fact that the Department of Public Works, I can speak specifically for, does a great job in the city of Wilkinsburg. We do everything we can do to make sure our roads are clear. We are on top of everything that happens when it happens in a community. If there are trees down, we're on top of that. But speaking for the people in my ward and my district, they are against the merger. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Some of the people think that the WCDC is council. There is so much misrepresentation that is going on. This thing is moving too fast to where there needs to be more dialogue. There's property in Wilkinsburg that is privately owned. These people need to be held accountable for the property that's dilapidated. There are so many issues that people perceive to be Wilkinsburg's fault. There is a misperception of what Wilkinsburg can do. The WCDC does not represent Wilkinsburg. They don't represent they don't represent council. They are a sole entity that is for gentrification and mainly for the business district on Penn Avenue. That is their sole function, their sole motivation. They've seen all the things that are happening in East Liberty, and Penn Avenue is a money machine. So let's look at it for what it is. So I say no to the merger, and thank you very much, City of Pittsburgh Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next, I'm naming a couple of speakers. The next 5 speakers are Michelle Salling, Ram Kumar. I'm gonna spell the last name, Nataarajan, Terrell Allen, and Jacket Kelm. And Brandy Whitecloud. Those are the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers. So can we begin with Michelle Solon?
Yes, hello. My name is Michelle Sailing.
Sailing, I apologize.
That's fine. I live at 1318 Singer Place in Wilkinsburg. It's a very fine home called the John F. Singer House. It's a historic landmark, and I've been here for almost 40 years. And I'm very much for the annexation because in the 40 years, my experience has been that we have stayed local. We're committed to being local. We're committed to not outreach so that we can move forward. And I'm suggesting that a balanced budget may be because we're not doing what we need to do and hiring who we need to do and bringing in the voices we need to move our little borough forward. We need Big Brother. We need to have a voice, and to have a voice, you need to increase your numbers. And Wilkinsburg is not going to do that based on where we're sitting right now with our population and dealing with the poverty that is actually inside of our diverse population as it exists now. I love this little town. I'd love to have the idea of Wilkinsburg being my city with my zip code. But the truth is that we are not going to have better. We are not going to have more. And we're not going to grow, much less defend ourselves against the blight we have if we don't get to be part of, hitch our wagon to, and have Pittsburgh support us, because we have really good people here, professional people, talented people, beautiful homes that actually attract people in like mine through Airbnb. And we need to come together as a larger community. It's wanted, it's needed, it's time.
Emma? Okay, thank you. And our next speaker is Rim Kumar, Natarajan. Natarajan. Is he on? He's not on after all that. All right. We'll try to come back to him because I remember he spoke before. Terrell Allen. Terrell Allen, I apologize. Not on. Jacket Kelm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good
Yes.
evening. It's Chakwe Kem. Good evening. Happy New Year. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I apologize for the name.
No worries. Wilkinsburg is the most populous Black majority municipality in Allegheny County. Its residents cherish the fact that it is a small participatory democracy. They are empowered by being able to know and live amongst one's council members, and to know that one's civic participation is civic self-determination in a manner that does not exist in a larger governmental body like the city of Pittsburgh. Wilkinsburg residents do not want to give that up. The Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation is advocating for the dissolution of that democracy. This so-called grassroots initiative the WCDC has orchestrated has sourced the vast majority of its signatures from the areas closest to Edgewood and Churchill, where more affluent homeowners want to break on their taxes. The only signatures that came from elsewhere in the borough were gathered by non-residents paid to collect them. Meanwhile, most of Wilkinsburg is comprised of renters who will have very little to gain from this gambit. As property prices undoubtedly will increase and developers seek to take advantage of being able to brand their projects here as being the newest part of Pittsburgh, a current renter's hopes to afford a home in their community will be diminished, particularly since they will now be paying 3 times as much in wage taxes as part of the city of Pittsburgh. It is baffling to most of us in the borough that the WCDC, an unelected, non-representative nonprofit, ostensibly tasked to develop the community of Wilkinsburg, is instead using grant and foundation money to remove the borough from the map. They have failed to meet their goals of developing the Penn and Wood commercial district since their inception. This nonprofit is now charitably paying the way for developers to swoop in rename and remodel this neighborhood, hoping to offer the city's favorable property tax structure where the borough of Wilkinsburg once stood. The WCDC has been invited to Borough Council to present their findings and make their case to the residents ever since this began, and they have not. We residents want to know, why should we presume they are acting in all of Wilkinsburg's best interests? Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Brandy Whitecloud. Brandy Whitecloud. And you're muted. Could you unmute your mic, please?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for having me, guys. The proposed annex of Wilkinsburg, and I'm a longtime resident of Wilkinsburg.
Excuse me. Could you please shut off your one phone or move it away from the mic because it's interfering with what we're hearing?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Better?
It's an echo. Yeah,
Okay.
that's better.
I'm a longtime resident of Wilkinsburg. I have family that still lives there. My mom lives there, sisters, cousins. And the proposed annex of Wilkinsburg, they haven't even heard of it. Like, it's not even on the radar. So this group, this nonprofit group, is basically trying to do a land grab. And I just have a prepared statement, and so I'm just going to read what I wrote. The land grab is more, nothing less, to get money to help, just like someone said earlier, to help Allegheny County cities dwindling numbers. That's a given. As you add on to the city losing numbers of people, Wilkinsburg is the perfect one. It aligns the borders of the city. So it's an easy grab. The attempt to boost that population and to broaden the tax base by additional taxation. From prior administrations, we know gentrification is really real, displacing African Americans at a high rate than others. Groups or nationalities are being driven out in record numbers. If businesses really wanted to do business with Wilkinsburg, they don't need a nonprofit. They need to go directly to the citizens, the residents, the borough, the business owners, and figure out different ways how to make the tax bracket work for everyone. Different tax structures, a different tax code maybe. Give some incentives on bringing the businesses into Wilkinsburg. That benefits everyone. But the notion that the city is going to be the savior of Wilkinsburg is novel. The city needs to work out some of the areas in the city, like Homewood, Lincoln Limington, East Hills. Why do they need to go out the side of the city when there's a lot to do inside the city? These communities are hurting just like Wilkinsburg. They desperately need money put in these predominantly Black areas where it's lacking. And so the notion that Wilkinsburg needs all this help when the city really needs help is very funny. I mean, look what happened in the Hill District. We still are grappling with the notion that they don't have a grocery store in the Hill District. And we still hear promises that they're getting one. Neighborhoods like Lawrenceville, East Liberty, AKA East Side, has seen gentrification at its best. You've seen derailed, disheveled, displaced, people pushed out of communities for business development. And that's what will happen if Wilkinsburg is annexed. We'll see booming businesses, but the majority, like people said, of the renters who live in Wilkinsburg are renters. And
I apologize. I know the meeting's been long and I can't wait this long. So if you have anything up, couldn't get through, and probably here and I can tell you and again, to call the clerk's office, to email council members via the clerk's office to give that information. Josh Huntington, and I'll tell you what on the last nine speakers, it's Josh Huntington, Tyrell Best Savage, Councilwoman China Lee, Dante Cummins, Jess Runco, Emma Honcharski.
Madam President,
Jason Cohn,
Madam President.
Our last registered speakers will go through the list for others, but we'll begin with Jocelyn Hinton.
Madam President, can you hear us?
Tyrell Best Savage.
I don't think so. Madam President, can you hear us?
Tyrell Best Savage. Councilman Kraus, are you trying to say something?
Councilwoman Strasburg and I are both trying to communicate. It's very difficult to hear you now.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
They're working on the audio. Hear that, Councilman?
Thank you.
Yes. I'm just gonna text first. Councilman Kraus.
Please give us a couple of minutes. We're having a couple of technical difficulties in council chambers. We hope to have it back up and running as quickly as possible.
Tell me what we have.
You should be okay.
1 second. Okay, we temporarily lost audio. Council members, can you hear us now?
You're better
Yes.
now, Madam President.
Thank
We
you.
can't hear them, but can you hear us? Could you just give us a nod? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I apologize, council members. So we have Councilwoman China Lee. Wilkinsburg Borough Councilwoman China Lee. She's not on? Or is she on? No.
Now try.
We're almost there. China's not on. And we'll go to speaker is Dante. Dante. He's on.
Hello, this is Mayor Dante Cummings, Wilkinsburg's mayor. And I just wanted to come on here and just, like I've always been saying from the beginning, how this is being so rushed. There's no reason to rush it this fast when we all have to come together as far as councils, mayors, school boards, and iron this out, just like we ironed out everything else. It took time. That first merging of or school districts, so from 6 to 12, that took more than 6 months to do. And to think that we can do a whole borough mixed with a city in about 6 months is crazy. And it's being rushed. And I think it was strategically planned during a pandemic when a lot of people couldn't come outside. That's why you'll hear people that live in Hunter Park or Paul's Court that just never heard of any of this because they got to who they wanted to get to, and that's not right. It has to be transparent. It has to have everyone involved. We have to purposely increase this voter turnout. You don't need a referendum to get conversation started. The responsible thing to do is just to get everyone in line. And if this is something the whole community wants, it'll be a beautiful thing to see 5,000 people come together. Like, this is an amazing thing. They had a lot of meetings, but there's still not one single question answered. And it won't be answered until after this is signed over and we're part of the city, and we'll still just be trying to figure it out when it could have been figured out. Even if it took 2 years, we have to be transparent, get more people involved, and try to figure out things on our own until something responsible comes together. And I just pray that if this don't give up the school district to try to merge and still mess our kids up. Like I said, we just have to do this responsible and talk. We all have to get together. One Wilkinsburg, like both of the mayors say.
Thank you. We are having problems with our audio throughout the last few speakers, and I apologize. Continue. For some reason, you can't get the next. Just run.
really bad again, Madam President.
Emma Hunt. Charles-
It's an echo, it's your reverb.
Yeah, we're here, you too. They're working on it as we speak. Emma Hunt, Charles. She on there? She's not on there? Jason Coe. Jason on there? Not on there? John? Dawson? Yes, I'm calling the names now. And Kip is on there? Kip Dawson. Jason. We should recess this meeting then if we.
We had an issue with one of our laptops needing an update. We're trying a workaround, but we're not being very successful. There's nothing we can do about the update because it's a Microsoft-driven update, not an INP-driven update. So that's what is happening in the background. For those of you who are listening and watching, we're hoping that we can swap out laptops, but I think what happened is that in swapping out laptops, we destroyed the audio feed. So we're working on it, I promise.
Thank you. With that said, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address City Council? Anyone in the audience that wishes to address City Council? Thank you. Can we time him?
You sound good in council chamber, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you. They're running around here really trying. I apologize. Yeah, we're going to go on to this speaker first. Yeah. Okay, I apologize. Please continue in person.
Oh, okay. Good evening. Hi, my name is, can I take my mask off?
3. I'm giving 3.
Can I take my mask off?
Pardon me?
Can I take my mask off?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, my man. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Michael Rose. I'm a 35-year resident and former councilman of Wilkinsburg. I had one speech prepared tonight, but after listening to the people speak tonight, I have written another. First, I believe the word annexation itself surrounding this debate is counterproductive and overdramatic. It's a word of war. Hitler goose-stepped his way into annexing Austria. America annexed Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Cuba from Spain after the Spanish-American War. It doesn't belong in this format. Wilkinsburg High School, middle school, trash collection, fire departments already through the city. This is just completing a symbiotic union for both sides. This is America, which means that this is a representative democracy. All Wilkinsburg asks for is the right to vote to determine its own fate. To those who say it's happening too fast, well, that's the obligation of your great council and mayor to help you with. There was an election last year. They were going around talking to you. They should have been spreading the word. They knew about this last year when they rejected it on February 3rd of last year. The city has seen its population decline by half. It needs new tax-paying citizens and developmental land to build on. Wilkinsburg has both. The property values of Wilkinsburg have more than doubled in the last 5 years. Part of the reason is people want to flock back to the city, and Wilkinsburg offers easy, affordable access to both downtown and shopping districts in Monroeville and Murraysville. The only thing really stopping us from exploding like Squirrel Hill is that we have the 3rd highest tax in the county, and which is triple the state average. For those who are against the merger, feigning concern for the Black community in Wilkinsburg, the Black community has declined by 25% and is being gentrified with or without a merger. What's the opposing side's solution to that? I say to you that it is contemptible and patronizing to oppose a solution for the Black community without offering a tangible solution of your own. And until you do, you are emblematic of the benign neglect that we have suffered from since the days of Daniel Patrick Moynihan suggested it to Nixon in 1969. Your argument can't just be, I don't want rich white folks to win, while you're really talking about middle-class Black people like myself that would welcome any chance to catch a financial break tax-wise to help balance the home budget. That's all I have to say. Thank you, and please give us our chance with a vote. Have a good day.
Thank you. And we're going to go back to our list of registered speakers. And we're going to, who is it? Jazz Runco, Jess Runco is our next speaker. Jess Runco, you're on. You have an old version of Zoom. If you want to update it real quickly, we'll come back to you. And if not, we'll tell you how to contact us so that all members hear your comments. Emma Honcharski. Not on. Jason Cohn. Jason Cohn.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
I'm not sure how much of was heard when I got cut off, so I'm just going to start over. My name is Jason Cohn, and I live at 425 Center Street in Wilkinsburg. I'm a 24-year resident and a former president of Wilkinsburg Council. In that role, I helped negotiate the fire contract with the city of Pittsburgh years ago. For the last weeks and months, council members have been inundated with phone calls, emails, letters, all expressing opinions about this complicated and important annexation discussion. You've heard anger, you've heard accusations about individuals, you've heard complaints about the process, you've heard accusations about the WCDC, and about the effectiveness of Wilkinsburg government officials. But none of that is what this is about. This is about whether or not we, as two neighboring communities who have so much in common, have the strength of will to do what is clearly in the best interest of both our communities and the region as a whole. I understand it comes with uncertainties for our residents and complicated political questions for all parties, but I'm confident that if you take the time to look at all the facts, the actual facts and not the emotions, you'll see that this is an action worth pursuing. I imagine President Kale Smith, who was also part of the fire negotiations nearly a decade ago, saw what I did at the time. Two communities who want to make something in the best interest of their residents happen, finding creative solutions to meet a shared goal. It wasn't an easy process, but we succeeded by working together. As a result, fire protection in both communities improved. This is no different. It's just a bigger and more complex, but with much larger benefits for both parties. One clarification of an inaccuracy about the signatures that was stated from earlier, the vast majority of signatures were collected by volunteer residents, including me. While there are obviously people who are adamantly against this, I can assure you there are many who support it. There's only one way we'll find out what the residents of Wilkinsburg truly want, and that's by giving us the chance to vote in the spring. I respectfully urge Pittsburgh City Council to show that Pittsburgh is a city that wants to grow, and vote yes and allow the democratic process to proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Kip Dawson. Kip Dawson.
Mute. Got it. Hello, my name is Kip Dawson. I am a resident of Pittsburgh. I live at 554 East End Avenue in Pittsburgh, 15221. And thank you very much for having this hearing and giving me this opportunity, because I'm very passionate about our relationship with Wilkinsburg, and you'll see why, I think. While I respect and actively seek more equitable, responsible, and mutually beneficial sharing of resources between our city and the people of Wilkinsburg, I urge you to vote against the motion that is before you today. I believe that the action that you are being asked to take is legally, ethically, and morally flawed. In particular, the action you are voting to take in regard to both Wilkinsburg Public Schools and Pittsburgh Public Schools is out of order, because you are being asked to step over, ignore, bypass, and assume the role of the school boards the voters of each city have elected to run each school district. There is no way that this is excusable, that you should overstep the roles to which you have been elected to mandate basic changes in the ways that the schools operate should be unthinkable to you. But since it has found its way to you via this proposal to annex our sister city next door, I trust you will vote against doing so. Indeed, the entire annexation resolution you have before you sets us back in our attempts to work together across our rather wobbly city lines. My family and I moved to Pittsburgh from Wilkinsburg 25 years ago, but we didn't move far. Right now, we live a couple blocks from the Wilkinsburg line, going either east or south. And much of my life has me crossing that line happily. I taught for 2 years in Wilkinsburg Public Schools, at Turner and Johnston, before teaching for 19 years in Pittsburgh Public Schools. And I know firsthand how much we all could gain by increasing the collaboration between the two districts, so that all of our children and their families and our school workers could grow our schools together. This is a relationship our schools should build and lead, as others have said tonight, as they already have begun to do, and as our elected school leaders have taken responsibility for appropriately. The people both of Pittsburgh and of Wilkinsburg deserve a more open, more thorough discussion about all of the matters before us, as I think tonight's discussion has amply showed us. We have not had that kind of opportunity because so many of the issues have not been out in the open as they are becoming in tonight's conversation, which I am very grateful for. Please, City Council, vote this resolution down so we can make this real conversation happen, both in Wilkinsburg and in Pittsburgh, and to.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I'm going to go back to Councilwoman China Lee.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Good evening.
Hi, great. So I guess I should first start. I'm formal councilwoman. I'm no longer on council.
Thank you.
China Lee, 501 Holmes Street. I'm an attorney, longtime Wilkinsburg resident and landlord, and I remain opposed to the annexation for several reasons, and I urge the Pittsburgh Council to vote no. One of the main reasons I'm opposed is that this isn't an opportunity to let people vote. It's not an opportunity for Wilkinsburg and the city of Pittsburgh to come to the table and negotiate and determine what the best course forward is. That would be a merger. This annexation effort is quite simply a takeover orchestrated by a rogue community development corporation within Wilkinsburg and some political figures and developers outside of Wilkinsburg. Wilkinsburg Council deserves the opportunity to be at the table with Pittsburgh to discuss if merging makes sense. But an annexation is an outdated law from 1907 that was designed for people left behind in towns that no longer had a government structure in place, and those folks can no longer receive any services such as public works, police, etc. This is not the case with Wilkinsburg. This annexation effort is an exercise of gentrification, and it's a land grab. The people who benefit, as we can see from the people who are invested in the effort, seem to be developers and people regretting their home purchases because of property taxes. The city of Pittsburgh already has enough land to develop and focus on, and Wilkinsburg residents do not wish to be a part of East Hills, Homewood, or Lincoln, or wherever we would land after redistricting. We can see where there's been beautiful development on main corridors of predominantly Black neighborhoods in the city, but on the remaining residential streets, there is still the same blighted and abandoned conditions that everyone in favor is saying will magically be fixed in Wilkinsburg after an annexation. Further, the efforts of the WCDC to push this annexation is not indicative of what the community truly wants. Wilkinsburg has two neighborhoods, Blackridge, and a small pocket bordering Edgewood and Regent Square, where houses are priced and assessed much higher than anywhere else in Wilkinsburg. A significant portion of the annexation support has come from these areas. Wilkinsburg, like many other boroughs and townships outside of the city of Pittsburgh, has higher taxes than Pittsburgh. We all knew this when purchasing property in Wilkinsburg, myself included. But nearly half of the population in Wilkinsburg are renters, not property owners. Most of our renters will not benefit from an annexation. The timing of this would allow the annexation referendum to be placed on the ballot during a primary election with low voter turnout, which is unjust and a very strategic move by the WCDC. I must add that the WCDC has failed Wilkinsburg. They partnered with the borough to develop the community and revitalize the business district, but it has done absolutely nothing except get a new building for itself and rehab a useless train station. Wilkinsburg has a comprehensive plan in place and is now working with other community organizations to tackle remaining tasks set forth therein. Wilkinsburg deserves a chance to fix our own community. Finally, as an attorney, I would always advise that my clients read the terms of a contract before signing, but in this case,
Thank you. And we're going to come back to a couple names that we believe are now on, that we called earlier that were not. And number 4, was that number 14? Yeah, Kathleen Rollins. You're muted. Could you please unmute your mic? You may have the older version. As you're unmuted. Okay. Could we please try one more time? Kathleen Rollins. Try *6. All right, I apologize. We'll have to give you another way to reach us. And then, what was the other name? Maria Pitaway. Maria Pitaway. You're muted. Could you please unmute your mic? Could you please unmute your mic? Do you have an old version? No? No? Okay. Do you have any other members? Let's see. What number? 41. Jocelyn Hinton. Number 41. She on? Can we get her in? She's muted. Could you unmute your mic, please? We're not picking it up. Could you please unmute your mic? Jocelyn? Jocelyn Hinton, please unmute your mic. Last call. With that said, Madam Clerk, could you please tell people how they want to, if they want to send in their comments for all members to read or see, how they can do so?
You send your comments, you can call or email your comments would be better if you email your comments to City Clerk's office at pittsburghpa.gov. City Clerk's office spelled out at Pittsburgh, PITTSBURGHPA.gov.
Thank you. And we have a statement from a school board member. She tweeted it, but she also emailed to all members of council. So I'm not gonna read that, but I want to thank her for taking the time. I mean, I'm gonna read it, but not read it aloud. I thank her for taking the time to notify council. And with that said, I'm going to see if we have anything for members, beginning with Councilman Wilson. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Councilman. I apologize. We have our, as I mentioned, we have our council solicitor here, and you had heard some comments that I'd like for you to clarify. Sure. Would you introduce yourself for the public?
Sure. My name is Daniel Friedson. I am the solicitor to City Council for the City of Pittsburgh. And there was a couple comments that the president had asked me to clarify. One is this is not the only way for municipalities to merge. There are other things on the books besides this one particular law from 1903. Also, there's been some comments about how this might have been a grab, if you will, for another community. And we need to clarify that this is not a Pittsburgh initiative. The city of Pittsburgh and the voters of Pittsburgh did not put this before us today, which then speaks to the next issue of clarification of we are under court order to hold a public hearing and make a decision by April 5th. And while that's is perceived as a rush, please keep that in mind, that we're bound by the statute and court order to proceed as quickly as is demanded in this case. So we're doing our best to get as much input as we can from Pittsburgh voters, as well as proponents of the annexation from Wilkinsburg and people who might be against it as per the statute and the court order.
Thank you very much for your comments. And Councilman Wilson.
Just want to thank all the commenters for coming today. And I'm looking forward to continue to hear from the public on this. I believe we have several more public hearings and also a post agenda now. So a lot of productive conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just say to that, we're going to discuss the process that we're going to move forward with shortly. And Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, Madam President, thank you very much. And thank you for the clarification. There was a couple times during the public hearing where I kind of had to hold back from asking if I could make comment. You and the solicitor are absolutely right. This was not an initiative that was founded within Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh City Council. This came to us, and we are under court order to take action. Some comments that I heard were about stop this process. Perhaps I was misinterpreting them, but we, perhaps stop this process by the vote that we take to say no might be a different interpretation, but I too wanted to clarify that we are under a court order. We have to, by April 5, forgive me if I have the date wrong, but we are obligated by court order to vote either up or down on this initiative. We did not initiate this. It was given to us. The signatures were submitted to Judge James. They were found to be valid. And under Judge James' court order, we are obligated to take action, not what action to take, but we absolutely have to, by quarter, take this under vote by that deadline date. So I appreciate your clarification. That was really the only thing that I wanted to offer up as well, because I believe that's a very important clarification that has to go out there. And thank you for leading us in this public hearing, Madam President. I know it was a bit challenging at times tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And it's Councilman Lavelle still on? Is Councilwoman Strasburger? Yes. Councilwoman Strasburger? You on? Councilwoman Strasburger, did you want to say anything? She may have to be taking care of something at home. Okay, so with that said, I first want to thank our clerk's office, our sergeant at arms, our city council solicitor, and our IMP department for working through all the challenges today, making sure that we can get have a public hearing via Zoom and in person, and just for all your work. I know you're all working different hours, and council is increasing our evening meetings and weekend meetings, and I know it requires more of all of you, but I appreciate all that you do to help us serve the public, and I know the other members appreciate it as well. With that said, I've heard a lot of comments. I could speak to a lot of the things that were said tonight, but I think instead what I want to mention is, first, I'm going to defend our public works crews because I hear a lot of people saying stuff about the way we respond to snow removal in the city. And I just want to tell the public to please hold on a little bit. I think next year this city council, working with the previous mayor, put in $13 million towards new vehicles, replacing the entire fleet for the Department of Public Works. We are also building a new 5th division with the help of and the advocacy work of Councilman Coghill and Councilman Kraus. And it's the 4th division, I apologize. And then we're also hiring new employees in DPW like we have never had before, with the budget that we had put forward and some of the things we've done with the park tax and others, I will say. So hang on, because even though I think our crews do an amazing job with the equipment they have, they're going to do an even better job, I'm sure, next year. And with an acting director this year, who's very familiar with them. So we'll see what happens, but I do believe it will be better. And I just want to defend them for the work that they do. On a separate, back onto this actual process here, I think that you've heard everyone mention that we have been court ordered to take action, to have a hearing and to take action. And we only have to have 24-hour notice for a hearing, but what we gave was days notice. We got the order on Friday and we scheduled for today. So we gave a couple of days. And our clerk's office did a great job getting that information out over the weekend. So, but I will also say that even though we're under court order, we asked for people to work with us and work through these concerns and work through the issues and give us real numbers, not numbers paid for by any independent group or any independent organization, but something done by our controller, who is amazing. And he's also happens to be the school district's controller, and by the county controller, whoever's in that role right now, because our controller is, she was elected to a judgeship. So we know that there's numbers out there that are public numbers, and those are the numbers we really want to see and we really want to be able to dissect. Having said that, we don't have a lot of time to do this with a court order that says that we should do something by within 90 days. It takes weeks to do any kind of legislation, and plus a public process. So we are moving forward, but I will say that as we ask people to join us and to work with us and try to figure this out for the city of Pittsburgh and for Wilkinsburg and for the betterment of Allegheny County, that did not happen in the way that we had anticipated. Instead, we got court ordered. So with that said, this council will do what this council does. We will take the lead and we will make decisions on how we're going to move forward. And this council is a strong council and united overall with our decision on doing what's best and working together. There may be differing opinions on what we should do, in some areas, but overall, we know that we have to do what's in the best interest of the city of Pittsburgh. But I will just say that this council will take the lead now, and we'll let the public know the process within the next few days. Thank you. Can I have a motion to excuse the meeting? Councilman Wilson.
So moved.
Second, Councilman Kraus.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.